source of much troubles in our patients, and actually it needs very important consideration nowadays, considering the significance of sodium overload as a cause of high mortality among our hemodialysis patients. The book is entitled Salt Toxicity in Hemodialysis, and I think the correct name is Sodium Toxicity in Hemodialysis, because salt is formed of sodium chloride. It is the sodium part which is responsible for this problem. At the start, we have to realize some important figures and facts in order to proceed easily through the talk. The 1 gram of sodium represents 2.5 grams of salt. Okay. The 1 gram of sodium chloride, or 1 gram of salt equals 17 millimole of sodium. In order to convert from millimole of sodium to milligram, you have to multiply by 23. The recommended intake of salt, which is for the general population, which is about 6 grams, equals 100 millimole sodium. So in order to don't confuse the subject, you have to be sure you are speaking about the salt or the sodium. And when you are speaking about the salt or the sodium, what is the unit you are using? It is milligram or it is millimole. This is very important. At the last slide, I will give the KD recommendation for the allowed sodium intake per day for the hemodialysis patient. But as all of us are vaccine physicians and know it, it is 5 grams of salt, or less than 2 grams of sodium, which is represented by a small teaspoonful of salt per day. Again, the recommendation for the hemodialysis patient of the intake of salt, not of sodium, is to take less than 5 grams, which equals a small spoonful or a teaspoonful. Again, I will add another statement. This is not to be added to the usual food. This is the all-in-all salt per 24 hours, whether it is in the food, whether it is in the fluid, in anything. This must be very clear. The second important thing that I would like to clarify is that with the intake of about 9 grams of salt per day, which equals a tablespoonful or the large spoon, the subject is obliged to take 1 liter of fluid after this amount of salt. This is obligatory. So when somebody consumes about 1 tablespoonful per 24 hours or whatever hours he is using it, he is obliged to take 1 liter of fluid after. This is very important in our patient, because if they are going to consume this large amount of salt per day, they will take obligatory, or in French obligatoire. هياخدوا الحاجات دي غصب عنهم اللتر عشان الكميه اللي هم خدوها. The sodium sources in hemodialysis patients is not only dieting. You have to realize that it comes from the 3D. It may be dieting, which is the main source, but it may be also from the dialysate sodium or some drugs that is rich in its sodium content. And at the near end of the talk, I will present a case about this issue. Starting with this hill of sodium, which is excessive sodium intake, and the salt that will result in great problems in our hemodialysis patients. All of us know that high sodium content is associated with the development of hypertension, edema, peripheral or pulmonary, heart failure, and of course, damage to any residual kidney function in hemodialysis patients. This diagram is very clear about the association between the daily sodium intake and the development of hypertension. This is very clear in the physiology books of Brighton and all the books, and actually this practical relation between the intake of sodium and the development of hypertension was discovered since as early as the 70s of the last century. On the same part, if we restrict much the salt intake, but it needs very aggressive restriction of salt intake, you will find this marvelous drop in the blood pressure, whether the systolic or diastolic, in these patients. Again, raising the association between salt and the blood pressure for this patient. not only the development of hypertension, but increasing evidence suggests that high salt intake may directly, not through the development of hypertension, increase the risk of stroke, the LVH, renal disease. It is also associated with obesity. It is related to the development of renal stones, osteoporosis, to the severity of asthma, and is probably a major cause of cancer of the stomach. So it is a great problem, as you will see. So it is a very common among all the world that there is awareness about reducing the salt intake, one of which is not the kidney day as we used, or the hypertension day. It is in the salt, it is a week, not a day. It is called the World Salt Awareness Week. Most probably they found that one day is not enough in order to raise this awareness, so it makes it 1 week, and maybe in the future maybe 1 month. This is the logo of the last week this year about less salt will result in lower blood pressure and less risk of stroke. And the one of the coming year will be the title Eat Less Salt. And they pleasantly say, less salt please, for the people in order to reduce the much risk associated with salt intake. All these figures are very clear to us. The 1,200 milligram per day reduction of salt or sodium will result in saving about 10 to 24 billion in healthcare costs. A 400 milligram reduction of sodium over 10 years will be more cost effective than using the medication to lower blood pressure on all persons with hypertension. This is published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Population reduction in sodium intake will prevent more than 100,000 deaths annually. I think all this data is very clear even to the public. When any public speak about the salt, yes, it is very risky, etc., etc., etc. Fluid consumption between dialysis sessions in our hemodialysis patients is right limited to sodium intake and the thirst that this causes. Therefore, sodium restriction is one of the most effective and important ways to limit fluid-related weight gain between dialysis sessions. Excess fluid intake without an associated sodium intake doesn't cause hypertension, as it increases the intracellular rather than the extracellular volume. So it is very clear when one takes much salt, like this man taking Gypsy or KSP or whatever, he will go looking for water from where or whatever it is present, and he will take it. This is a very clear message to us. Because if our hemodialysis patient take much salt, they will take the fluid. If you are standing in front with him with a gun or whatever you want, he will take the fluid, and he's obliged to do so. So the simple thing, don't eat this in order not to be like this. It's very simple. It doesn't need any intelligence or anything, but it needs some time and some education and some mercifulness approach to our patient. If this patient continue to intake much salt, the effect will be much intake of fluid as we see here, and the first part will be affected is the heart, as again it is seen very clearly in this figure and associated with heart cardiovascular problem. In order to summarize the first part, in our hemodialysis patient consuming much intake of salt than the recommended, they are going to develop hypertension, high intradialytic weight gain because of thirst sensation. Thirdly, they may develop edema, peripheral and pulmonary. We are obliged to remove excess fluid, so the ultrafiltration rate will be increased. And all of us know that now this is associated with high mortality if you remove more ultrafiltration during the hemodialysis session. So the message is very clear, we have to stop salt, and I think the last part of my talk is to tell you about how to advise our patient to limit salt intake, but I will astonish you by something. I will tell you something completely different from what I have told you in the past few minutes. It is on the contrary. Low salt intake is associated with more problems and more mortality. The other side, this is what is called the other side of the salt dilemma. Serious health consequences of long-term salt restriction. Take care, this is not of salt intake, excessive salt intake. This is of salt restriction. Most of these are misinterpreted. a 2011 study in a reputable journal like the American Medical Association Journal stated that low salt zone is associated where stroke, heart attack, and death are more likely. And I make a favor for you, I brought for you the direct link to it. Just click on this, you are going to bring the talk immediately for you in order to certify from this. Also, a publication this year of the American Journal of Hypertension found that people on low salt diets developed higher plasma levels of these risky hormones or biochemical materials like cholesterol and triglyceride. The same type 2 diabetes with low salt high mortality. The same in a Harvard study linked the low salt intake to the development of more insulin resistance. So this something will make one to be confused and grasping his hair and started to be angry like this angry man. What is the correct thing? Is the high salt intake or the lower salt intake? Continuing with the same story. Salt restriction may be especially dangerous for the elderly people with hyponatremia. The excessive salt intake will be despite that I didn't take my breakfast yet. Now, where is the angry man? He is present here. Which is correct? The excessive salt intake is associated with more troubles, or it is the low salt intake that is associated with low trouble. This is your job and my job to search and to read more and to understand more, but I will try to solve this issue. I think what have been standard in our mind is the standard. These data, all of these are new data. And they are limited data compared with the hell of data we have about the country, which excessive salt intake is a great problem. One of the issues to explain this, as anything in our life, especially these days, is, again, this continues the hemodialysis, especially before I discuss how to solve this problem, dialysate sodium concentration and the association with interdiabetic with gain hospitalization and mortality, and this is published in the CJSON this year. The conclusion is limitation of dialysate or reducing the dialysate sodium is associated with less interdialytic with gain, but more hospitalization, more hospital admission to this patient, and the impact is mortality is neutral. Again, going with the subject that low salt intake is risky, or low sodium intake in the dialysate is risky. As I told you, the one you look for it if you are in trouble, you are not in resting state, whether it is the correct or it is the correct, you have to claim money. Money may be behind many things, including the salt, because the salt is a very great industry. I brought this from one of the reputable cardiology journal in the last year. They are saying the papers published that low salt intake is hazardous or dangerous. It may be affected by the economy. It may be affected by the business of salt. Because salt has a very great 40% value in the producers. It is also the food industry is associated with all many things that results in profit. Dependence on salty addiction, so the people all over the world are in hungry way to take much food and salt, and they are buying this, and this will result in profit, especially in the areas with fast food. Salt intake will result in thirst. This will result in more consumption of soft drinks and mineral water. So actually this solved some problem in my mind. Every day when I look in the newspaper, I found this fast food is telling if you are taking to take one piece of potato, we are going to give you 1 liter of soft drink free, etc., etc., etc. It is a great business. Okay. Thirdly, the meat, even when mixed with salt, it will result in thick with water, and it will increase the size of the meat, making it 1.5 kilos instead of half of one, and this will result in more and more beef profit. If you are considering the conspiracy theory or نظرية المؤامرة وعايز تفكر بالطريقة دي، اوكي، لا أنا عايز أفكر بالعلم، طب نجيبها من العلم إزاي؟ الحقيقة زي ما في as there is some applications speaking that low salt intake is beneficial, there are many applications speaking that high salt intake is very hazardous. And in the studies, if you review the studies of low salt intake, you will find that there are bias inside it. I have no time in order to discuss it all. I give 2 proofs only. One of these is among hemodialysis patients, and this is in American Journal of Kidney Disease the last year. They compared the effect of low dialysate sodium on intradialytic weight gain and blood pressure in patients undergoing thrice weekly in central nocturnal hemodialysis, and the conclusion is prolonged exposure to higher than required dialysate sodium may drive intradialytic weight gain and counteract some of the benefits of longer session length hemodialysis. Also, it is a meta-analysis and reviews and mathematical modeling by these people, and this was held in the American Heart Association 49th annual conference, that 3-gram reduction in salt expected to result in the following between the years of 2010 and 2019. Same benefit as eliminating smoking, which is a great problem. Coronary heart disease were decreased by 6%, MI were decreased by 8%, and all other reductions of the beds were reduced by 3%. Reducing the salt intake to 6 grams per day, this is among the healthy people, not among the hemodialysis, could save 800,000 life years in the USA for each gram lower. So, in order to take, this is my opinion, again, we are in the steady state that much intake of salt is very dangerous and is very hazardous, and forget for the time being about this speech about the low salt intake is the hazardous one. Now, what is the advice in order to give to our patient in order to limit the salt intake? We have to realize that the main source of salt is coming from the processed or restaurant food. It represents about 77% from the processed, canned, and restaurant food. The very small amount, 5%, is during home cooking. So the first easy advice is don't eat much or don't eat at all these foods and make fresh foods at home. The advice is very easy, but the application for it is difficult in fact. According to a recent CDC report, 44% of the sodium comes from the top 10 foods. This is arranged in accordance. هم مترتبين بالترتيب كده، الأول أكتر من الثاني من الثالث. البريدز أند رولز. البريدز أند رولز اللي هو مش العيش البلدي اللي احنا بناكله بس، ده العيش البلدي بيقال إن هو فيه حوالي 2 جرام اللي احنا بناكله في رغيف العيش. إنما العيش المقصود بيه بقى السلزونز والحاجات اللي زي كده بتبقى مليانة ملح. الكولد كاتس أند كيورد ميتس I will make you see a picture now for this cold cuts. Certainly pizza, poultry, soaps, canned soaps, and sandwiches, cheese, pasta, meat, dishes, and snacks like chips, like salzones, like etc. These are, if we make our patient to stop taking most of these foods, we are sure that we are limiting much the intake of these foods. These are the pizza and these are the milk cuts and the cured meat. Milk cuts والcured meats كده اللي ما كانش يعرف زي ما كنتش اعرف الحقيقه الميلك cuts والcured meat دي اللي هي البسطرمه واللانشون والحاجات اللي هي موجوده قدامنا دي فيها صولت كتير. اتقابلت كده باي ذا واي دكتور مهدي يعني ما كلمش بالعربي كلم بالانجليزي فانا هسمع كلامه بنسبه 90%. كان من يومين كده كنت بتفرج على التلفزيون امبارح في احد البرامج وانا بحاول القنوات كان في واحده بتتكلم على ازاي هم تصنعي البسطرمه في البيت. اوكي؟ فهي كاتبه ايه عايزين المكونات المقادير كيلو لحمه، نمره 2 بعديها على طول 8 معالق كبيره ملح. 8 معالق كبيره ملح، نمره 2 على طول في المقادير جت باي ذا واي جاست يسترداي. اوكي؟ فيبقى دي مهمه ان احنا نبقى عارفينها. امثله على بعض الاماونت اوف سولت اللي هي موجوده عندنا. البريدز مثلا بتجيب هنا this is for every 100 gram of any of this. It contains this amount of salt. The cheese, mozzarella, contains this amount in every 100 gram. You believe donuts, which is considered a sweet, Donuts contains 500 or half gram, okay, beer, 100 gram, etc., as you see here. Even the tomato ketchup is one of the very rich sources of salt. If you are insisting to take the ketchup and you are ready to lose your life if you need the good ketchup on your food, please use the salt-free or no salt added tomato ketchup if you found it in our market. Okay, again, this is the fried chicken for any of one piece contains about from 500 to 800 milligram and many etc. الحقيقه اللي انا عايز اوضح في النقطه ديت لما نيجي نبص على الاكلات يا جماعه او القوائم اللي هي موجوده وانا سايب المحاضره طبعا مع حضراتكم. خد 5 minutes وخلاص. نخلي بالنا من الحقيقه القوائم. انا رايي الشخصي ان احنا ما نبصش للقوائم دي، بيهاب ان احنا نبص للقوائم بتاعتنا. والحقيقه انا قعدت وقت صعب خالص، مهم قبل ما اقول الكلام ده بالعربي، قعدت وقت صعب خالص عشان انا اخش للناشونال نيوتريشن انستيتيوت اللي هو المركز القومي للتغذيه عندنا في مصر. لقيت حاجه غريبه جدا ان انا جبت العنوان بتاعه واعمل كليك على النت بالمنظر ده، الاقي عشان الصفحه تفتح لي يعني هضرب مني اللي معدي قدامي مثلا. تاخد ساعه، واخد بالك ازاي؟ هتنرفز يعني، توترت جدا. قلت لا، ده المشكله في النت. طيب رحت قافل الصفحه دي وجبت صفحه النيو انجلش جورنال اوف ميديسن، اعمل كليك عليها كده الاقيه طلعت على طول.
العيب في النت برضه.
ازاي؟ هي العيب فيا انا عارف، هي دي المشكله. فيبقى الحاجات دوت مهم ليه؟ لان كميه الملح اللي موجود في الاكل بتختلف من بلد لبلد ومن مكان لمكان. مش عايز اقول لك من مطعم لمطعم. الدكتور ماجد دايما لما كان يروح مؤتمرات في امريكا يجي يقول لنا على فكره الهمبرجر بتاع ماكدونالد اللي في ولايه مينيسوتا كميه الملح اللي فيها ما اعرفش ايه، انما اللي في ولايه ما اعرفش ايه، واللي هنا وهنا. معنى الكلام دوت ايه؟ ان احنا وي هاف تو نو اور فيجرز. ازاي تعرف اور فيجرز دي؟ عيش وقت صعب زي اللي انا عشته، ربنا يخلي ايامك احسن من ايامي وتعرف توصل. انا ما وصلتش الحقيقه بالمنظر دوت. فيبقى we have to analyze the issues دي. What are the advices to give to our patient in order to have a low salt intake? Don't use the salt as the table. This salt shaker او الملاحه دي لازم ما فيش حاجه اسمها كده في البيوت خالص. الحاجه الثانيه use the salt used in food preparation. Use herbs or spices for flavoring meats and vegetables instead of salt. لان دي نقطه مهمه قوي. احنا مش عايزين نتحول مع المرضى بتوعنا، المريض يقول له ايه؟ ما تستعملش ما تستعملش ما تستعملش ما تستعملش، فعشان يجي يروح مفاجئنا ومدينا الاجابه يقول لي يا دكتور الله يخليك ما تقعدش تقول لي ما تاكلش، قول لي اكل ايه؟ قول لي استعمل ازاي؟ قول لي اعيش ازاي؟ واحد بيتك وهيمودياليسيس بيشتغل تقول له ما تاكلش الحلويات ولا الاملاح ولا البروتين. قصه. فتبص تلاقي عيان في الاخر كده مش هيسمع كلام.
بياكل في نفسه.
المشكله ان بعض الدكاتره بيقولوا عيان كمان الدكتور جمال بس هو بعد ما تسمع الكلام بتاعي ده تاكل في نفسك، يقول طب يعني يقوم ياكل في الدكتور. We have to give herbs and spices, vinegar, lemon, salad, etc. to be put on the meats or vegetables instead of salt. Avoid salty foods such as processed meats or pickles. Check every nutritional information label before you buy or use a product. طبعا الناس اللي هم بيروحوا هايبر ماركت وسوبر ماركت وحاجات كده يبص على الحاجات دي يشوف كميه الصوت اللي موجوده فيها قد ايه، واحنا بنخاطب الناس على قدر عقولهم. انا لو عندي واحد ما بيعرفش يقرا خلاص هعلمه القصه ازاي، مش هعلمه يروح سوبر ماركت ازاي هو ما بيروحوش، لا اعلمه الاكل بتاعه يقلل الملح فيه ازاي. انما بالنسبه للناس اللي بيروحوا الاماكن ديت كده اقعد اقول لهم الكلام ده، يعني ممكن انا اغير طريقتي، ممكن اتكلم مع 10 بس كل واحد لوحده يلاقيني بكلمه هو بالشكل دوت كده، ونجيب ماجنيفاير ونقعد ندلع حياتنا ونبص عليه بالمنظر دوت كده. من ضمن الادفايسز انا بقى فينش، من ضمن الادفايسز الحقيقه اللي لقيتها لطيفه وكانت موجوده ان بيقول لك advising the patient to restrict fluid intake without restricting sodium intake is not based on evidence and is a waste of time. الحقيقه الستيتمنت والارتكل دوت is very important despite it is old من بقاله 11 سنه دلوقتي. تشارلز تومسون بيقول advising the dialysis patient to restrict fluid intake when they haven't had advice on how to limit their salt intake is inhuman, because they are being made to feel guilty and inadequate and being unable to restrict their fluid intake, and it is a waste of time. ده اللي احنا بنشوفه الحقيقه لما نقعد نقول الكلام دوت للعيان، تلاقي العيانين يقعدوا يعيطوا والله يا دكتور مش عارف ايه، انت تقول لي كده، ولادي في البيت يقولوا لي كده، جوزي يقول لي كده، محدش مصدقني، نخش بقى في دايرما. نقطه مهمه قوي الحقيقه في الطب الحقيقه، لا انا سوري تو تيل يو ذيس از نوت at present in our practice in Egypt الا من رحم ربي وقليل ما هم. ليس هناك رحمه في ممارسه الطب عندنا. جزء منها اللي احنا بنتكلم عليها اللي انا بتكلم عليه دي. Most dialysis patients wanted to stay alive. بالتالي بيسمع النصيحه. خايف من ايه بتاع الداياليسيس، خايف يموت، طيب ما تاكلش ملح كتير ومش عارف ايه، هيسمع الكلام بتاعك بالشكل دوت، بس يبقى كلام منطقي. من ضمن الحاجات الحديثه اللي كانت منشوره برضه في جون اللي فات، one of the way how to reduce salt intake around the hemodialysis patient. الستادي دي كانت معموله في اليابان، بيتكلموا ان العيانين بتوع الهيموداياليسيس بيكون عندهم تيست ديسوردر، فبيقعد ياكل ملح كتير وهو مش حاسس ان هو بياكل ملح. فبيقولوا ايه؟ Enhanced salt intake is partly due to this disorder is less sensitive to salty taste. It may be possible to decrease the enhanced salt intake by appropriate use of spices. استعمل فلفل، استعمل حبهان، استعمل معرفش ايه، instead of salt بالمنظر دوت كده. كنا اتكلمنا على المصدر الثاني من مصادر الملح اللي هو الدايليزيت. The reducing intake of dialysate sodium in addition to reducing dietary salt consumption will result in reduced sodium loading, thirst, reducing extracellular blood pressure, LDH, reducing urinary erythrogenesis, and this is behind the beneficial effect of reducing the salt intake among the hemodialysis patients. But again, the other side of the coin. On the long run, when we are reducing this salt and water balance, this will result in increased insulin resistance, circulating catecholamines, intradiabetic hypertension, and higher mortality. So what is the solution? If you are reducing the too low dialysate sodium, it will result in cramps, hypertension, and headache. If you are giving the too high, there is the hypertension. There is an interim situation or recommendation for this situation. Firstly, in those with clear evidence of positive salt and water balance, we have to decrease their dialysate sodium. And one day will come which our hemodialysis patient, just before going to his seat for hemodialysis session, we are taking a drop of blood. This is my dream. Maybe present in some countries, but this is present, not present in our country. Taking a drop of blood, like making blood glucose by glucometer, it will tell us what is the sodium, what is the calcium, what is before entering the dialysis. The second step, we are going to individualize the dialysis session for every patient, telling it this man has sodium this level to use the concentration formula number 1. And this one has sodium like this, but the calcium is like this, to use the sodium formula number 5. And to make our life is happy like this. Okay? The excess intake of while the patient who are frail phenotypes, the elderly patient with multiple comorbidities or hemodynamically unstable, having more severe cardiovascular disease, this patient decreasing the sodium intake for them is hazardous. The last, before the last slide in my talk, I told you excess intake of sodium is not necessarily a dietary or a dialysate. If we have a patient who is speaking the truth and we are sure from the dialysate concentration of sodium, please review the medication this man is given. This is a case published in the nephrology dialysis transplantation about elderly 72 years old woman who always come with positive volume balance, positive volume balance, 2 or 3 kilos, etc. And lastly, after reviewing, the patient is telling several times, I am not taking any much salt. Lastly, they found what is the problem. This woman was using for body pains 8 tablets per day of an effervescent analgesic. It is called codamol. It is a combination of codeine and paracetamol. The important part is that in order to make this an effervescent, they are putting 18 millimole of sodium bicarb of sodium in this formula. So the patient is consuming every day 8 tablets. If you multiply the 8 tablets per day by this 18, it will be 144. If you multiply it by 23 in order to make it in milligram, in order to understand it, because we are using the milligram, the patient is consuming per day sodium much than the recommended every day only from the tablets. We are not considering here the dietary or the dialysate. So please, if you have a patient who is controlling sodium intake, you are not using much dialysate, review his medication. Read it very correctly in order to know what is the sodium amount in this tablet the patient is using. When this patient stops the intake of this tablet and they give her instead another tablet not effervescent, not containing sodium bicarb, the interdialytic weight gain is much reduced in the coming months as seen here. The last slide is my talk, is just to remind you with the updated National Kidney Foundation guidelines for the daily dietary sodium intake should be restricted to no more than 5 grams of sodium chloride, the salt, which is equal to less than 2 grams of sodium per day. Another statement which is concerned with our subject also, increasing the dose of sodium balance by sodium profiling or using the high dialysate sodium concentration should be avoided. Thank you.